But before we get into the last topic, I just want to say, for those who don't know we have a YouTube channel, check out youtube.com, type in Most Valuable Podcast. We don't have like one of the cool links that say Most Valuable Podcast. You can't go to youtube.com/Most Valuable Podcast. It's like ZXQBG4996Z22. But if you don't know we have it, go subscribe to us. We're closing in on 15,000. And this is where we're pulling all of our comments for our new segment for NBA Draft Mailbag, where we are responding to comments.
It's Most Valuable Podcasts Reel.
Most Valuable Podcast Reel.
Yeah. We made it like in 2014 when we made the channel.
Whenever I type it in, it just says...
I just did it. That's why I know.
Whenever I type it in, it's always just like letters and numbers.
No, like if you go to it like from YouTube, it'll do that. Yeah. But I just typed in / Most Valuable Podcasts Reel. And it popped up.
And there you go. And if you're not subscribed already, do subscribe because we, on our Mock Draft 2.0, we did have a lot of great comments, and this is what we're going to be doing. So next time a Mock Draft posts, the next week we will have a mailbag responding to your comments. So don't forget to leave comments as well when you see the next Mock Draft. So we went through the 1, 2 through 10 one, and then the 11 through 21 and pulled off some comments off that. And let's start off. We're going to start off with Trey Green. Trey Green said, why do people peg Cam as a 3-and-D wing? Well, just because he's in a box at Duke doesn't mean he can't do more. So, Dave, I'll go to you first with that. Why do we consistently peg him as a 3-and-D wing? And I don't think we've been limiting him as not being able to do more, but why does he always get this rep of being a 3-and-D wing?
Sure. I think the most straightforward thing is that right now in the NBA, the most valuable traits of a wing player are 3-and-D. Like that's what we're trying to build. That's what the best is in the game right now. When you look at players like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you see those guys who can knock down a three consistently, who play incredible defense. The two-way wings are really what is the most in-demand position in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So when we look at someone like Cam, who has the ability in college, who's basically told, hey, there's the three-point line. We're going to give you plenty of shots. Just have confidence in it. Go for it. And he can. And defensively, he's not there yet, but he has the body size, he has the wingspan, and he has the makeup to be a good defender. So when we're trying to project him to what is the most in-demand position in my mind. That's what I'm doing when I look at his game.
Well, I think one thing too, Ricky, is when people hear 3-and-D wing, they think we're already limiting his potential.
Negative.
Exactly, or at least he's a role player. Because when Dave brought up the fact that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are 3-and-D wings, that is true. But most people think of them as superstars or all-star type players.
But Kawhi wasn't originally a superstar. Remember that?
No, but he was young. I mean, he developed into a superstar. Same with Paul George. But I think when people think 3-and-D, they think like Robert Covington, like a very good player, a role player. So. Again, do you think that he is in a box, though? Because Dave's obviously saying that he could grow into a player like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But do you think he is in a box in some ways of where he can be? Do you think he can reach the levels of a Paul George or
yes
Kawhi
and
Leonard?
No. And the reason, the box isn't 3-and-D. That's not the box. The box is what type of a team is he going to go to? Because as of right now, and on our mock, the Cavs were the number 1 pick. Well, the Cavs aren't going to pass on Zion. Any other pick he goes to, I would say, out of the next 4 teams, maybe the Knicks might be the one where you go, but Phoenix, he ain't going to be the guy. Dev Book's the guy. Chicago, he ain't going to be the guy. We've got Zach, who we would say is the guy. KD, Laurie out there. There are so many other people that we would say is going to be the guy where he wouldn't have to step up and be that.
IDK about KD being the guy over Cam Reddish.
I just threw it out there.
Lowry.
Even in Atlanta, Trae Young is the guy that they're building around. He's going to be the focal point of that team. Whereas, let's say Cam went to Cleveland. All right. Now he's going to have to be more than just a 3-and-D wing because Cleveland needs a face of that franchise. That's why for them, Zion might be the best pick for them because it's something to gravitate to their team. Well, but if Cam went to Cleveland, he would have to be the guy for that team, although they have Colin Sexton.
For both of you, then, for his growth, do you think he would need to go into a spot where he has a designated role right away, like going to a place where there already is a guy in your mind? Or do you think that he doesn't need a specific team, he doesn't need a specific role to fit in, he just needs the playing time, he needs the usage, and that will help his game grow? Do you think it is, Dave? Because, again, if he's put into a role, do you think then that's going to limit him in a box-wise? Or do you think if he's just allowed to get play, allowed to get usage, unlike he is in Duke right now, kind of put into a role, Do you think that's going to be the best way for him to flourish as a player and reach his max potential?
Yeah, I absolutely think that the more usage earlier on in his career would definitely benefit him. He's one of those players where he looked so good in high school and in AAU. Like, all of the stuff going into college was he can be a legit stud. Everybody wanted to put him anywhere from like T-Mac levels of like, this kid can dominate ball in hand, no problem. He's got a great stroke from the outside. He can hit from the free throw line. Everything works for him. So the fact that he went to a team where he wasn't going to be the guy because RJ was number one everywhere, and he was 2 or 3, and everybody's saying it was just that team decided they're going to run through RJ. And so I think that if he ended up on, I think the ideal situation is Cavs not 1 for him. And then it turns into how well can he take over games, because I think he can be a 3-level scorer. I think he absolutely can run an offense. He's not a point forward in the fact that the ball will run through him every play, but he's absolutely comfortable with the ball in his hands in most situations. So best situation, Cavs not 1. I think he's more than capable of stepping up, though, and starting his career off as a smaller role player, or that 3-and-D role player, if you want to call it a role player, but I still think he could start problem on any one of these teams.
When you say Cavs not 1, you're saying not the number 1 pick, and then they take Cam Reddish at like 2? Yeah. Is that what you're saying by that?
2 through 5, sure. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, there's other guys I like, but he's got the NBA body, skill set, size. He's got everything you want. Right now, we're only seeing him limited because of, well, guess what? He's playing with 2 other guys who happen to be equally talented to him.
I think the best scenario, I would agree with that, it's Cleveland, just because you do have another ball handler in Colin Sexton, who can at least, what's it called?
Facilitate,
score. But it's also they use it in baseball a ton. But it's just when they use it, spell him as a facilitator, and spell him as a ball handler. Yep. Like they can take turns off. It's not consistently, Cam Reddish, like you said, is a point forward. I think that would probably be the best place, but I don't think there's a way that Cleveland's not at least. I think there's a very high likely percentage that Cleveland's going to be number 1. I know that
but it's equal chances.
But I just have a feeling that it's gonna happen.
You think it's one of those wink, wink, nudge, nudge deals with the NBA?
No, I have a gut feeling that Cleveland's just gonna end up being number 1. I think the second best place for him though would be Atlanta, because
really?
I agree.
Because you look at Chicago. You mentioned you have.
I would say
Zach
Chicago
Levine.
would be number 2.
I disagree. You have Markkanen, you have Levine, you have Chris Dunn. There's a lot of ball handlers on that team already outside of Markkanen, but at least scoring-wise, then you have another guy you're fighting with competition-wise. Also, Boylan. I don't know how he's going to fit in there as well. With Atlanta, you have Trae Young out there, and Trae Young's going to have a high usage. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton because he's he's a great facilitator. But also, there are times when Trae Young doesn't have that ability to drive, create, and that's due to his size. And I think adding a guy in Cam Reddish who's 6'9", 205, who can also facilitate, who can create shots for Trae Young when he's not working, and then Cam Reddish can use his body to at least open that up and open up the lanes, I think that would be huge, because I think Cam does have that ability to play off. He has that ability to receive passes from Trae Young and hit open shots. We just saw it in the Florida State game. Wide open shot, drilled it. But I think one thing with him is he'll also be able to free up Trae Young's game. And if we're talking about them trying to build Warriors East, Warriors Southeast, he could possibly be like the KD to Steph. I know that's very high and very high praise, but let's just take the Diet Pepsi version of it.
And you're absolutely right, because this is a team that just beat the 76ers last night. And guess what? They had their Klay Thompson light version of Kevin Huerter going off for 29 points. John Collins looking like an absolute beast out there. And I think that I'm with you on this one. I think that if he fits in on one team other than the Cavs, I would absolutely put him to the Hawks, just because fit is perfect for him there, and they're on the right timeline for him. He's going to get all the usage, all the potential time out there, because they're a super young roster, and they want to continue to grow them and develop them. And I think that they have a really good shot with player development, but they have a really good staff for player development there.
No, at least make the case then for why Cam would be best suited for the Bulls.
For the Bulls, I look at it and go, we have 4 of our 5 starting future in place. Like for him,
I think KD's iffy, but yes.
Yet again, you could say putting him in a box, and this could be putting him in the box, but he comes in, boom, he's our starting 3. And I know that there's other people in our comment section that's like, oh, well, you know what? That'd be horrible defense with him and Zach. Well, newsflash, The league ain't built on defense anymore. It's built on
Thanks,
offense.
Jabari.
That's why we're seeing like 120 points a game on the average, it seems. But to get back to the main point, I just feel like the Bulls know, question mark, because does Garpax really know? But I feel like we have an idea of what our future can be, and he could fit in with players who the focal point wouldn't be around him. And if everything is true, and of course many people are different, I've seen a lot of commenters, hey, he's going to be the steal of the draft. That means to me that people are seeing something in him that is special, and I would want that on my team, especially if I'm that one piece away to where it's like, all right, now this team can grow, and now we just got to get the right guys to build around this starting five in the NBA. The only other team is maybe, and I'll throw this out, is the Knicks. And the reason why is if there's anything for me Cam Reddish-wise, and this depends on his mindset, which I don't know, I'm not Cam Reddish, but wouldn't it be something to say, hey, you know what? I was next to RJ and Zion, and in the pecking order for the media, it went Zion, RJ, and then people started looking at Cam Reddish to be the guy in New York that when people say New York, what's the one word we usually use as a nickname for it? The Mecca. And being the guy to maybe put New York back on the map, kind of like what we had mentioned earlier in the podcast with trades. Free agents don't want to go there. Can he be a guy that if the Knicks draft him there, can put the Knicks on the map again?
I think a big thing with him, though, is confidence, and I think then pushing him on and being like, hey, you're the star of New York, good luck, without possibly
I think Fizdale can help him with that, though.
I think it's a very dangerous situation for him. I really don't like that fit at all, because Atlanta, you can be hidden away a little bit, and you're only going to be seen when you're doing well, because no one's going to be putting Atlanta primetime, at TNT when they're 15 and 34. So I think that would be a nice place for him to grow. I think New York, it's so toxic, and you consistently look at rookies there. You have to succeed right away, or you're going to be just bashed completely. I mean, you look at Kristaps. Kristaps performed immediately.
So then, do you think Cam's a development guy? He's not going to be
no, I don't think he's a
good
development
right away?
guy, but I think that if he does have confidence issues right away, he might struggle like he was, before this Florida State game for Duke, and all the eyes are looking at Cam, and it's like, oh well, is he going to fall outside of the top 10 with his performance because he's struggling, and there's a lot of eyes on him. He's not the number one guy, but he's seen to if they lose, all the eyes are going to go to Cam Reddish because you didn't produce, because RJ's producing, Zion's producing, you need to produce. You're the worst of the three. So I think there's a lot of negative attention going towards him, even if he performs well, because again, if Duke loses, it's always who could have stepped up, and I think Zion, people see him as a limited player. He's a great athlete, but I don't think I'm seeing him as the number one. RJ, if RJ performs well, then it's just going to go right on to Cam. It's like, well, if they had a better third player. I think the best thing for him would just to be in a place that is a little more secluded in Atlanta, and be in a system that will work with ball movement, will work with longer players, will work if him being probably the best defensive player, I think, immediately going onto that team if they don't get a Taurean Prince. Because he's better than Trae Young defensively. I think he's better than Herter defensively. John Collins isn't great defensively. Dedmon's decent, but Dedmon might not be on this team next year.
Right.
I would say that he's going to be looked at as kind of a defensive anchor, and he does a lot of good things defensively, at least versatility wise. So I think that we're not pegging him as a 3-and-D player. I think we're just pegging him because he doesn't have that next level immediate step in and put up like I think Zion and RJ does. I think he does have the ability to produce.
Seen it. That's the thing. We haven't seen that next level because it's been Zion and RJ are there. It's almost like the sunlight's trying to get to this plant.
No, but
I think it would happen naturally. RJ taking over this team, it happened naturally. Zion coming up the way he has, putting up 30 points a game, it's happened naturally. We haven't had that game from Cam, and it's not like he's not getting opportunities to do it. He's getting shots. He's getting the opportunity to produce.
He hit a huge three-pointer.
Yeah, but if you
game.
watch the game, it turned into the whole last 7 minutes were all right, what can RJ Barrett do for you? Ball came down the court, who it was going to. He had confidence in himself. He had confidence in his shot. And even if he missed that free throw, he was still like, I'm still fighting. I still want it.
And that's the thing. If they do go to Cam Reddish, he misses that three. what are we talking about with Cam Reddish now? Like that would immediately be a huge blow to his stock. And this 3, it's a nice talking point. People are like, oh, maybe, hey, this can turn around his season. But if he missed that 3, that would have been a killer
that was
to people's mindset about Cam Reddish.
A missed 3 to me in this game would not have knocked his stock because, like, you've brought up.
No, but I'm saying, like, in other people's minds, I'm saying, like, on Twitter, people would be like, this kid's the 3rd best player. People would be trashing his ass on Twitter for missing that wide open of a 3.
If I'm speaking to Cam Reddish, who cares what people are saying? Who cares about what we're saying about
Cam Reddish,
Cam
This
Reddish?
kid's 19 years old, 18 years old. He's an impressionable
kid. If I
was
his coach, don't worry about what they're saying. Kind of block it all out.
But it builds up.
But when you're on ESPN, you're going up against the 13th team in the nation, and you have a wide open chance to win the game for your team, and you miss it. It doesn't matter what people think because you're going to be beating yourself up for missing that shot.
But
that's tough for someone to.
We don't know who it is. Some people move on from it and go, okay.
Yes, but I'm saying that some people typically for people, it is hard to get over things. So I think it was huge for him to hit that shot and get that confidence in the right way because it could have been a killer to him for the way he's viewed on that Duke team.
The last thing I meant is because you've mentioned like how his draft stock would fall. My mindset is if Nasir Little can be seen as a top 10 pick to people, then Cam Reddish is a clear top 5 no matter what. Like, no matter what he's doing, if Nasir Little can be in the top 10 in mocks, Cam Reddish is a top 5 guy. Like, his stock isn't going to fall if what we're seeing from Nasir Little can keep him in the top 10.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think he's going to fall out of the top 10. I'm just saying, like, they're throughout, like, that Texas Tech game until they started playing again, and even after the past 2 games, like, there were talks about him possibly falling out of the top 10 because he hasn't been producing, and it's what can he truly do? And I think that is what was brought up with at least the commenter and Trey Green. He was saying, like, why are you guys putting him in a box? Because I think people are talking so negatively about him on what he's been able to do at Duke so far. It hasn't been impressive. And he turned the corner here with the Florida State game. I don't think he's been able to really show off his true skills because he's been put into a box. And I think the assumption was that he's being put into a box. And I don't think that's a wrong assumption to make from Trey Green. But I don't think he's just a 3-and-D wing. I think he could be a 2-way player, at least like a Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But I think his floor is like a 3-and-D guy, like a Robert Covington, who can be a starter at best and then a very good role player. I think he's got enough athleticism to make it in the league for at least 10 years at the worst. But let's move to the next question. That's going to be coming from Micah 5. It's Micah and then the number 5, IVE. So I don't know. I'm just going to go Micah 5.
Yeah.
Why would Orlando take a forward over Romeo Langford? They need a scorer, not another forward, Ricky. Lyle, I say Garland, Langford, or Porter in that order for the Magic. So, Ricky, respond to your haters.
So, number 1, you got to understand where the Magic were in that mock in case you're coming in, you've looked at Tankathon, and you're like, oh, they're the 7th. Why didn't you have them? They were at 9 during our mock. So, Keldon Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, guys that they would have gotten were gone. Second off, at number 9, I had them go to forward, but I had them go with Rui Hachimura. And for me, you say, oh, they need a scorer. And I go, have you not watched Rui? Like, do you even watch, bro? Like, that's what I would come back with because this is a kid who can score. At the forward position, can get to the basket. There are people that have compared his skill set to a one Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not saying they're exactly the same, but that they contain the same similar traits of being a bigger forward, but can attack the basket, can hit from mid-range, can defend. Like, this is a guy that his works knocks are probably, I mentioned his defense, that's probably one of the worst ones, and then his rebounding. Everything offensively, his shooting, getting to the basket, his 3-ball. Why wouldn't you want that at the 9 spot? I get that there's people that might have been on the Romeo Langford train, but I am not on that train. That's why I had Rui over Romeo, who went 10.
I think the biggest thing is not only the scorer part, but also just the forward part, because you look at what that team is built right now. Outside of Evan Fournier, I don't think there are like good guards on that team, and Fournier has been even iffy this year. And then you look, they just drafted Jonathan Isaac, they just drafted Mo Bamba, they have Aaron Gordon, they have Vucevic, so there is more of a stockpile of from that 3 to that 5 range. So why Hachimura, at least positionally?
Because I'm going to go back to something Dave Oster has always told me in mocks. I came in very early, NFL mindset. What's the best fit? And what do you always say, Dave?
Fit doesn't matter.
Fit don't matter. Fit don't matter. And at number 9, if I'm going fit, Romeo Langford would be more of a fit. The next biggest fit would be Lugens Dort, who I had going at 14. And I looked at it, and on my big board, I had Hachimura above Langford. And for me, I like what he brings to the table. I think the people that say that Cam Reddish is going to be the steal of the draft, I think that there's going to be one more steal above a Cam Reddish, and that's going to be Rui Hachimura. He's going to be a guy that people overlook. He's going to be a steal in this draft. And that's why for the Magic, I just looked at it and went, you know what? I know you got too many forwards, but you take the best available because you don't want to be looking down the line going, oh, man, why did we take Romeo Langford? We could have had Rui Hachimura on our team.
Dave, you were brought into this because of the whole fit thing. What do you think about that, at least for the Magic? Because I do think it is going to be an issue. I think Ricky brings up a fact that obviously you wouldn't want to look back and be like, oh, Sam Bowie fit our team more than Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Right.
Like, obviously that could happen, but I don't think Hachimura is to that level at all. You're going to be regarding him at that level. And I think you look at Isaac, Bamba, Gordon as well. You don't really want to stunt their growth. And I would be hesitant to take a forward, at least that would be taking minutes away from them. What do you think? Because obviously Ricky said, you brought up the fact that you're going best player available rather than best fit. Do you agree with him here in the situation for Orlando, or would you go with the fit?
I think that you're being overly cautious on the injuries. I think that, we all reacted badly to Bol Bol's injury because he's a 7-footer, but Darius Garland is someone who has just oozing with talent at the guard position and something that they desperately need in Orlando. And I know there's the argument of, we can get someone in free agency, we can go pay Terry Rozier a bunch of money, or we can go pay somebody else money to bring them home, whether it's Kemba or regardless. Take Darius Garland. He, coming into this draft, was the best point guard available. He only got dethroned by John Morant, who's having an insane year and is a year older than him. So I would 100% looking at your board. I think that I know the injury's there, but I can't pass up. Like, it's fit and it's top potential in my mind.
And that's a good point. And the thing I'd say to that, because I completely forgot about that, is the sense of with mocks too, I think people need to, we're going to have 6 or 7 of these.
Yeah.
Over time, it's going to develop. The best thing to do is go through last year, look at our first, and go and see how they changed and where the players fell. Because, last year we were saying, it doesn't matter about this injury. Michael Porter Jr. is the number 1 pick in this draft. Did he go number 1? No, he didn't.
But his back injury was much more severe.
And that's what I'm saying. For me right now with Darius Garland, he's not completely fallen off, but, the thing I'm waiting for on that, it might be because of what I saw at Michael Porter, and it's recent in my mind a year ago. Let me wait till the combine, till the medicals come in, till I see him coming off of this injury, and let me kind of decide there. Because for right now, with what it is, I need to see him after the injury before I buy in necessarily on him. And that's where Garland for me is tricky at 2.0.
And then going off that, too, with the fact that you brought up that we'll have 6 more mock drafts or 7 or whatever after this, I think you also have to think, all right, in my mindset, if these guys do become healthy, because I think Garland is more of a case to get healthy than Bol Bol is, and we'll get to him in a little bit. But Garland, obviously, he's smaller. This isn't a lingering issue as a foot injury might be for a 7-footer, especially someone who already looks as thin as they are. Garland, I think, is going to be easier for him to bounce back from this injury. And I think that you have to look at what he can become and what he can be at the time he is most healthy. And I don't think that's something you can pass up because, like Dave said, the talent's there, and then also it would be a fit. And again, I do not want to – you just took back-to-back drafts, a 6'9" forward and Jonathan Isaac, and a 6'11" or 7-footer. I think he's 7 feet. Is he 7'1"?
I don't know what his official measurement was.
Mo Bamba's a freak. And you don't want to really take that away. And then Hachimura, again, he's going to be working inside as well. I don't see the outside shot from Isaac. I don't see the outside shot from Bamba yet. And then you're adding another guy right there to just clog up the lane even more. I think it's just going to be too risky.
And that's the thing. Because it's a process, we do 7 of these a year. When I don't know if you guys do it like this. When I do a mock draft, I sit there and go, okay, tonight is draft night. This is where they're at right now. Whereas look at my 7.0. And then it changes because I don't look into the future of oh, this guy might be healthy, he's not. I go, what do I know right now? And this is what I know right now. That's why for Garland, I got to wait until the combine to see if he is healthy before he rises on mine.
All right. And let's move to the next one. It's going to be from Jordan Jaden. It is Morant is good. Obviously speaking to John Morant.
Yep.
Morant is good, but you have to be drunk if you take him over Barrett or Cam. This is going to be at both of you because you both had John Morant over Cam and Barrett. So what do you guys see potential-wise why John Morant should be going above RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, especially if we're bringing up the fact of fit? I know the fit was big for the Phoenix Suns, at least in that instance. If you were a team, Dave, at least big board-wise, would you have John Morant over Cam or RJ?
I did and I do. And again, the what it comes down to for me is John Morant has a it factor to him because ball in his hands, he is absolutely deadly getting to the hoop. He drives in with solid aggression. The thing that he needs to work on is obviously like he can draw contact, but honestly, he needs to take a page out of like James Harden's playbook and learn how to sell contact because he's getting robbed of some time at the free throw line. But he causes defenses to cave in, and he sets up his team. He's a good facilitator. Obviously, he still needs to work on his turnover issue, but because of the volume that he is asked to do on that team and the high level of usage, I'm not concerned. I see so much out of him that I think he translates really well to the next level. And I think that when it comes to the top of the draft, Ricky earlier just, had me say it is, fit doesn't matter. Take the best talent available. That's an oversimplification. If you didn't know that, that's what that is. And basically it's how much are you weighing potential versus fit versus development. It's like what skill can he bring right now? What can he do for my team today? What could he do for my team if he's my franchise player? Like, you have to weigh it all out. And with John Morant, I think it just, the way it landed with the Suns at 2, it was everything lines up perfectly for this Suns team because no one cannot take Zion. I'm sorry. If you're one, you're taking Zion, period, unless the man loses a leg in the next, 6 months, 5 months, whatever we're down to. But at 2, I don't think you are crazy to take John Morant over RJ Barrett, who is an excellent player. Don't get me wrong. I just think that his skill set sort of is less desirable. I'll just say it is less desirable to me than what John Morant can do.
What about it, though, is less desirable? Because people look at RJ Barrett as a kid who already in the ACC is putting up 23 points per game. We see him taking over a game against Florida State. We see his outside shot being fairly decent this year, going 4-7 today. He's had games of 3 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 6. Obviously, he's struggled as well, 0 of 7 in a game against Texas Tech. He's had the ability to take over a game as a scorer. He's even been able to be a distributor in some points. We looked today, 0 assists and scoring 32 points, but even against Wake Forest, 21 points and 7 assists.
Right.
So I think you see RJ Barrett, and I see a very crafty scorer, a guy who can get to the bucket in any single way. And also we look at the wing position and how crucial it is. I think that gives at least RJ Barrett a little bit more of a bump. So what it factor is not there in RJ Barrett that is there in John Morant, in your mind?
For me, it comes down a lot to getting everyone involved. And it's funny, I mentioned getting everyone involved. We just talked about Cam being turned into a role player at the college level, potentially being the third best player in college basketball, and yet he's already been designated a role player by some. John Morant is getting everyone involved on a team that doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of talent, and yet it's the everybody eats method is, yes, he's going to go get his, and he will keep you competitive in games that you had no right being in, but at the same time, he's going to kick it out because by nature of his playmaking, the guys get better shots from 3. Their team is shooting better this year from 3 than they have in the past. Like, it's just, he makes guys around him better, whereas RJ Barrett can get his, and there's no denying that. But when I look at the talent around RJ Barrett, I go, how is he making their lives easier? How is he making them better players? How is he a floor general? Is he able to go out there and call things on the fly? And he's usually one of the quieter guys out there when you watch them defensively running into switches. Obviously, offensively, you mentioned the Texas Tech game, probably the hardest defense he will face all year. And when he struggled, he took that second, I don't want to say his second seat, but he still took plenty of shots. I think 3 or 14, right? and you ended up having to go back to Zion to kind of carry you through that game, which there's nothing wrong with that. He's the best player in college for a reason. But I just wonder about his game. I feel like he's very, and it's hard because we're reading into college games.
Yeah.
But it feels like he is able to do everything wonderful for himself, and I wonder what his impact is to a team as a whole.
RJ was 7-22 in that Texas Tech game.
7-22.
Well, and the thing I want to throw out is, because I was a little bit different than you. Like, if you look at my big board, I have Williamson, Cam, Barrett, then Ja.
Correct.
However, mock draft, I have Ja number 2. And for me, the if de facto team that's at 2 that should take Ja Morant over anybody else is Phoenix. I don't care what you're thinking if you're Phoenix, Ja's the pick. Because Cam, RJ, it's going to get redundant there. You need a point guard. Go and get Ja. He'll be the perfect.
You just don't think Devin Booker can play with RJ Barrett next to him?
And it's just the fact of you're going to get RJ Barrett, but then we're going to say the same thing. Oh, it'd be great if you had a point guard. And for me, it's like Ja's that guy to where for the Suns, he can come in and be that point guard that you need. The team that I get a little iffy with is the Knicks, because they're a team that if they're at 2, let's say they're at 2 behind the Cavs, they could go Ja. I mean, right now their point guards are either Frank, Moutier, or Trey Burke. And Trey Burke's contract's up. Moutier has looked good, but is he the future? And then we all know what we've talked about with Frank. For me, the Knicks is different. That's why your mock, I don't disagree with it, but that's more of a decision, more of a debate for if you go Cam RJ split, or Ja Morant if you're the Knicks, because they could go with an RJ and still get RJ could fit with the Knicks better than he would with the Suns. And this is the only time where you talk about fit, because like the Suns, they need a point guard. The Knicks, I still see Cam and RJ as better than Ja on the big board. So with the Knicks, I would go more towards them over Ja.
I think something does have to say, at least to defend you guys, being drunk to put Ja over Cam Reddish. Again, we haven't seen Cam fully unlocked. We're seeing Ja Morant unlocked, and we're seeing some special things out of him, and it cannot be denied. And I know he's not going up against the best of competition, but he's been doing it on a consistent basis. The one thing I do want to say, at least going...
If I was drunk, I would have put him number 1.
The final thing, just comparing Ja Morant and RJ Barrett, what is more concerning in your mind? Because you see against Eastern Kentucky of all teams, Ja Morant, he puts up 34 points, 10 assists, incredibly great numbers, but then he has a game with 10 turnovers. In that same game, he has 10 turnovers. RJ Barrett, you look at that Texas Tech game, 16 points, 31% from the field, taking 22 shots, only 1 assist and 6 turnovers. What is more concerning? Because I don't see a bad game necessarily from Ja Morant. I mean, you could see the Middle Tennessee game where he had 9 points, but it was 4 of 8 from the field, had 7 assists and only 4 turnovers. So still decent turnover to assist ratio. But he has been seen as a high turnover guy. What's more concerning, the high turnovers against poor competition or going up against tough competition and not having your best night in RJ Barrett?
I'm going to say what Dave said on I can't remember if it was on our big board or when we talked about Ja. Who's Ja playing with? It's him. And the reason why there's so many turnovers is, all right, if I don't get mine, we're going to lose. And that's how I feel, where it's like, I'm just going to go head on into this wall because the players that I'm playing with, if he was playing with Zion and Cam, we wouldn't be getting 10 turnovers a game.
Yeah, I think for me, the concern, Sean, for your question is when you go up against top-level talent and you keep making the mistakes that you used to get away with against worse teams. Because RJ Barrett, the big thing that I see in his game is his shot selection at times can be really poor. And it turns into a game of, all right, when he ends up with the ball in his hands, everything's going to be a little different. But, he can get away with taking bad shots against worse level competition. But when you're playing against really tough defenses, and now as they go conference play heavier and heavier throughout this year, he needs to work on that, whether it's just a mental note for himself or whether he needs to get an excellent coach involved. He does have one. I'd be curious to see his game evolve a little bit better, because it's something that started basically from the start of this year all the way through, and I've seen it. And I know it's a short period of time to ask for someone to evolve their game in, but it's still something where the same poor decisions on shots happen in game 1 are happening at game 15, 16.
Yeah, and
It's
that's
like, dude, you gotta realize what you're doing to yourself and what you're doing to your team.
And on the other side, I'm going to use John Morant, where he's only had 2 games of 10 turnovers. Like, the thing
That's a lot.
that is a lot. No,
even
no,
when
no.
you're getting up to like
No.
7,
That is a
too.
lot. Like, yeah, he's had 7 in some games,
He's averaging
but
five turnovers a game.
let's be honest, though. Like, yeah, I know against Southeast Missouri State he had 6, so I mean that's kind of treading that line. But 2 of the 7s came within the first 3 games of the year, and then you had the first 10 was against Alabama. Alabama, his first tough opponent of the year. The next time he played a tough opponent in Auburn, limited those turnovers to 5. Still shot around the same, about 50. He was 55 against Alabama, 50. He took less shots against that Auburn team. And yes, he had less points, but he still had a good game against Auburn. Whereas Eastern Kentucky, it's all of his stats are similar. It's just that the turnovers went up. Now, if he was averaging, like, if he already had like 4 or 5 games with 10 turnovers, I'd say, okay, there's a problem. Like, everyone's going to have a bad game from once in a while.
But when we talk about the competition level, and then you look at those Alabama and Auburn games, and you see that he has a 12 to 15 assist turnover ratio, that's not good because you're going up against these guys. And yes, maybe you can blame it a little bit on the teammates, but also you consistently see this where the skill level needs to be at least somewhat similar between Murray State and Eastern Kentucky, or a UT Martin, or a Morehead State and a Southeast Missouri, and the lowest amount he's had in those games was 5, and it was 5, 10, 5, and 6. So there's got to be something where the ball handling and the decision making isn't fully there yet for John Morant. So I think it is a concern of him turning the ball over a lot, because turning the ball over that much in the NBA is bad. And doing this right now against lower level competition, I think it is a concern, probably the biggest concern I have of him, because you look at his shooting's fine. Like, I mean, he's shooting like 31% from 3,
right.
Which isn't great, but also you look at his free throw line, I don't think his shot's broken in any way. So I think that it is a fine thing. The biggest negative to me is the turnovers.
If you look at it, since December 29th in his last 5 games against this lower competition with that 10 turnover game, he's averaging about 2.3 assists per every turnover. So, I mean, he has played.
No, and that's the thing that I brought up. That's why.
No,
that's the thing that I've brought up, is the fact that I'm not too worried about his turnovers.
Yeah.
Because his assist to a turnover ratio as a whole is fine, but that's again going up against lower competition. So you can have a 2.3 assist to turnover ratio in against lower competition. That's fine. But when you're doing against big competition like Alabama and Auburn, and you're doing 12 to 15, that's bad. When when you're turning the ball over more than you were giving it to your own teammates and setting them up, that's the reason why you're losing that game 93 to 88 against Auburn. That's the reason why you're losing that game 78 to 72 against Alabama. And when you're going up against better competition in the NBA, again, you have to look at his decision making. You can't put it all on his teammates and all on him for working at it.
In college, he can
be sloppy
too.
with the ball,
like,
and it's shown on tape.
Like, I was going to throw out there also, college is different than the pros, where in the pros we don't see not a ton where it's like, well, I'm going into this year and my roster is completely overhauled. Like, for the most part of it, you have the same guys kind of sticking around, where in college you could, and I don't know Murray State's roster last year.
Right.
But, like, you could have it in college where it's like, look at, like, of course, Duke restocks, but, like, at a small school like this, well, we had a ton of upperclassmen leave. And now our roster is completely different. And that's why, for me, non-conference, I kind of almost give you a pass in the non-conference, because you're getting to know this team. You're getting to know yourself a little bit more as a player, because most of the guys that we're seeing are freshmen. I know Ja's a little bit different because he is a sophomore, but you're still getting to know yourself. By the time we get to conference play, that's when I go, okay, this is the real start of your season. What type of player are you, and what are you going to show me the rest of this year?
They have 3 seniors on their team, 3 juniors, 3 sophomores.
No, but what was it last year?
4 of them only freshmen. Well, I'm assuming that there's only a couple of guys that are transfers. So most likely, these guys have been on the team for at least 4 of them were freshmen. So that's all I can say. Let's move on, because I do think that you have to at least bring up concerns with John Morant, because I think a lot of it has just been, positive talk here.
Even if you stat crunch it down to his best comparison in a lot of people's minds of like a Russell Westbrook. Like, he's still pretty much in line with where he should be right now.
Yeah. Let's move to the next comment. It's Sam McBuckets. If the Hawks pick Culver at 5, then that's a huge overdraft. Ricky, that's going to you because you had Culver at 5 in your mock draft.
I mean, that's just like me when I saw this one when you sent it to us. My first thought was just, okay, bro, it's just an opinion. Like, for me, at 5, I like what Jarrett Culver brings to the game. Can shoot the 3, can defend the ball. Like I even said in the mock draft, I could look at it as, hey, this is Warrior management. You kind of got that player in Kevin Huerter last year. Why not get another player like that in Jarrett Culver? The only debate in my mind that would go through my head is if you like Kevin Porter Jr. more, but he's been injured a little bit, so that's why I give the nod to Culver right now. And I guess there could be a debate for if you want to look at a 3 over a 2 and go with like a Keldon Johnson or a DeAndre Hunter. But really at 5, that pick for the Hawks was, what do you like the best? And I liked Culver the best. That's just what I liked because of what he brings from 3 and what he can bring defensively to a team.
Dave, we obviously talked a little bit about the discrepancy in this draft. How, pretty much the top 4, in some people's mind, top 5 as well. There's a true talent, drop off. So I don't think Culver's a huge overdraft because you're looking at guys who are trying to produce. You're looking at guys who are athletic, fitting that NBA mold. I think Culver does fit that mold. Maybe play devil's advocate here. Why do you think it might be an overdraft for Jarrett Culver here? Are there any things that really stick out that are major red flags in his games that he shouldn't be going top 5 in this NBA draft?
At this point in time, the only thing that I can reasonably knock him for is that he goes quiet at times throughout a game. You'll see stretches of minutes where Jarrett Culver's not engaged with their offense. The nice thing is defensively, he's always engaged. That's never a concern. And I think that's why I would agree with Ricky in the valuing him so highly. I think he's one of those guys with a very high floor. So when we're looking at a draft, like you said, with that talent discrepancy, if you can land a sure thing, a two-way player who can contribute, give you maybe 12, 13 points, 4 boards, and an assist and a half, 2 assists a game at the NBA level, like early on in his career, that's not the worst thing to happen at the number 5 pick, especially when people want to gamble with guys like Nasir Little, who, we're seeing a limited vision on what he's able to do for a team due to his situation at North Carolina, and a guy in Kevin Porter who injured. Yes, he looks like he has a spark to his game. We want to see, the James Harden in him. We want to see a little bit of a creator, an excellent finisher, but at the same time, you're hoping on a lot of potential with that situation. So I think with Culver, I just look at him going offensively. Sometimes he just doesn't get engaged in their setup. And I don't know if that's him or if that's coaching. I want to take a knock at him, though, for that one personally, because I've seen the ball pass through his hands with just rotating, swinging this way, just swinging back through. And it's just not a thought in his head. Other times he's locked in. He's absolutely being a floor general for them. So I can't get super negative about him because he's delivered.
I think the biggest thing that I do worry about him is his ability to kind of shoot from the outside, because I don't see that at least confidence too much in him taking outside shots, pulling up from deep, walking up, taking threes. He's not taking a ton of threes, about 3 a game. I'd like to see that go up a bit more, and even at the rate he's shooting at it. He's shooting 35% from 3, but it's a college 3. And how dangerous can he truly be from the outside? I think his potential right now is a little bit limited, and I don't have a great idea of what he can truly be as a 3-point shooter. I think he'd be a fine 3-point shooter, but I think I need to see a little bit more. I think that's the biggest thing that I would say. If we do see a step up in his 3-point shooting, I would feel comfortable, at least putting him in that conversation in the top 5.
Because we're not talking about him having a broken shot, I'm going to say this. If we can talk about Zion developing a 3 at the next level, we can talk about Jarrett Culver developing a 3 at the next level.
I don't think he's developing a 3.
I'm saying if you have the question mark about his 3 at the next level, that I don't even worry about, because the Hawks, we had that debate on the podcast that, I'll be honest, I was probably wrong about. Are they building now or are they still waiting for the future? I was probably wrong. They're not ready to win now, but I mean, if that's the case, you go at Culver and you can develop him because he can work on that NBA 3 because he's got the shot.
My thing with that, though, is with comparing Zion to Jarrett Culver, Zion needs to add that 3 to become, that would take his potential from All-Star to for sure Hall of Famer. You don't see that ability athletically in a player and his basketball skill. No, hold on. Let me finish my point. Let me fucking talk. I see Zion as a guy who, if he adds that 3-pointer, immediate superstar. There's no questions about it. And there's a huge ability for him to even develop a form at all for him to become a 3-point shooter. I know the form there is there for Culver. I'm just saying for me to feel more confident about taking him top 5, I would want to see that as more dangerous. I think Cam Reddish has that ability to pull, walk up, off the dribble 3, around the screen, pull up from 3. RJ Barrett clearly has no qualms doing that as well. John Morant, no qualms there at all as well. I see that, and I think he's a worse athlete than a guy like Nasir Little, so that takes him down. He needs to show something that other guys can't do, and I think that him being able to shoot off-ball threes, that's fine. You can do that. You can be a very good NBA player, but what's going to make you a starter? And having a very versatile, multifaceted game where you're able to go off screens, off dribble, left and right, pull up threes, that's going to be something that takes his game to that next level. So I think you're trying to compare two different guys that, Zion can't shoot threes, but Zion and Jarrett Culver are not the same player.
I know they're different, and that's the thing of where I'm trying to get at, whereas, yes, Zion's ceiling is he becomes a good NBA 3 player and adds that to his game, becoming a maybe Hall of Fame type player. Where
I don't think he's ever going to be a good 3-point shooter.
Where Jarrett Culver, his ceiling is what you said, a dead-eye knockdown 3. And for me...
No, I don't think that. I'm saying
the ceiling. The ceiling, like what he can develop into,
and I disagree with you. I don't think he's a dead-eye.
Compared to where Zion Williamson will never get to, like, let's say Zion Williamson will never get to the Klay Thompson type deadliness from 3.
No, and neither will Jarrett Culver.
Whereas Jarrett Culver, though, his ceiling, though, is what I'm saying, is higher than Williamson in the 3-point category.
And that's why I'm saying you can't compare the two because they're completely different players. But Jarrett, no, you're not getting what I'm saying. You can't compare the players because they're different. They're different players.
And I'm not comparing their game. I'm comparing the 3-pointer of, because Culver is better, I see him developing better from 3. And I was just using the example. If we can talk about a guy who plays in the post, who he calls a dunker, developing a 3, we can say that Culver can develop his 3-point shot into something that is respectable for an NBA team. That's all I'm saying.
We're not saying Zion can develop a 3. We're saying if he develops a 3, then he would be one of the most dangerous players in the NBA. I'm saying Culver, he needs to become a better 3-point shooter to make it in the NBA.
And I think he can. That's what I'm saying. I think he can.
And I'm just saying, I'm not saying that Jarrett Culver's not making it in the NBA. I'm saying for the NBA draft for this upcoming season, I want to see more from him as a 3-point shooter to make sure that he deserves to be in that top 5 range where you put him. That's all I'm saying. And comparing him to Zion, bringing him up, I don't see the connection you're trying to make. But let's move into the next comment. Ivan Cardenas, I hope I'm saying your name right, Cardenas. Guys, it absolutely makes no sense for the Knicks to pick John Morant, not with Moutier or Frank on the roster, and their future on this team is not entirely solidified yet. Barrett makes more sense because in this game, to win, you need to have good wing players, and the Knicks can't bank on the opportunity to sign a KD or Jimmy Butler. Don't you think the Knicks would have traded for Butler if they wanted to? Also, John Wall, are you guys kidding me? How are we going to re-sign KP, KD, and others? Frank, Barrett, Knox, KP, Robinson, or Moutier, Barrett, Knox, KP, Robinson would be the starting lineup, I think, is what he's throwing out there. First off, with the John Wall stuff, Ricky threw that out, and it was just a conversation thing. Sometimes we bring up stuff just so we can, we have an idea, let's talk about it, and let's see if it's, possible. And I brought up, when Ricky put that up, it'd be interesting, but you need to sign KP. You're not going to be able to have flex. You have Tim Hardaway taking up so much contract space. You're extremely limiting yourself. So a lot of people were pissed off the fact that we brought up John Wall. Again, it's conversation. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. We have no control over it. And that's not saying we would like to see it. In an all-perfect universe, if there's no cap room, John Wall would be very interesting on the New York Knicks, and I think Knicks fans would like it. But there is a cap room, and obviously we brought that up a little, like 2 minutes later. So let's get away from the John Wall stuff. I think the thing, though, with that is how limited are Moutier and Frank as point guards, and that's the biggest thing. We talk about Ja Morant and his ability to be having that ick factor. Michael Wilbon calling his dunk against, I think it was UT Martin, introducing. Like, that's something that you don't see too often. Him, jumping over a defender. That's something that has that it factor. Moutier has been playing phenomenally, but Moutier is 24, 25 years old, and he was seen as a bust traded away from his first team. That's not a good sign, and he's been playing very well, but is he a starting NBA guard, or is he a very good guard that can come off your bench? And Frank, I love the guy. I want to give him a ton of credit. He's still extremely young, and he has that defensive ability, but he is extremely limited on the offensive end, and we're not sure if he's going to be a one guard, if he's going to be a two guard, if he's going to be a guy that can run an offense, or if he's just going to be a guy that plays off ball. And if he is playing off ball, he needs to develop a three-point shot, and he has not been able to do that so far. So I look at that, and if you have a guy like Ja Morant, especially if you're sitting at 5 and he's available, and RJ isn't on the board, Cam isn't on the board, Nasir Little is on the board, I'm taking Ja Morant because, yes, you have players there at the one spot in Moutier and in Frank who might be able to be guards at that spot, but I look at Ja Morant as a guy who can, overcome anything, any ceiling that Moutier and Frank possibly have because he has that superstar potential. Now, RJ versus Ja is something that we just talked about a little bit, at least for the Knicks. I'll go to Dave. Mm-hmm. At least, why would you say, because you had Ja, you had RJ, wait. No, I had RJ. Wait.
Rick, you got the draft up?
I do.
I'm trying to figure it out.
You had RJ at 2. We had RJ at 3. You had Cam at 4. We had Cam at 4.
Did anyone have Ja Morant go on the Knicks?
You did.
You did. You had him go at 3 to the Knicks.
Oh, okay. So that's why I directed my question.
Yeah.
But Barrett makes more sense. The reason why for my mock draft I didn't put Barrett there is because he was already off the board.
Yep.
And I think that Barrett would be a very nice fit there. And if Ja Morant is off the board,
well, who did me and Dave have the Knicks go with? RJ Barrett.
Yeah, so I think that was the thing. Sorry, I got confused with the question there. Mm-hmm. If RJ and Ja Morant are both on the board for the New York Knicks, they should take RJ Barrett. Because you have guards right now that can fill that gap, and you still have guys that you can work on with their potential. Mm-hmm. But if RJ's off the board, Zion's off the board, I feel like you should take Ja Morant. And that's not a dish to Cam Reddish at all. But I look at Frank, and again, you're not sure what position he's going to play. You look at Moutier. Is this just one season? Is this just one spark? If KP comes back, is that going to take away his shot and his production? I think that's something that is something that is up to question. So and then also the other thing is can't bank on the opportunity to maybe sign KD or Jimmy Butler. I'm all on board with that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think you are going to sign KD or Jimmy Butler. I don't think that's really going to be a possibility. So I'm not saying you're banking on that or anyone's saying that you're banking on that, but it is a possibility, and you have to talk about it with these teams because, again, the draft happens before free agency does. Yep. So if you're planning on making a very big push for Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler or Jimmy Butler, you at least have to keep that in mind for your at least drafting as well.
And that's the other thing that I was reading, pulled it up again, an article on ESPN where basically they talked about how with the Knicks, with GM Scott Perry, they've been in what he called a talent acquisition mode, the chance to take risks on talented former lottery picks that were discarded by previous teams. Like they've got Noah Vonleh, who's won. They've got Moutier, who's won. Trey Burke, Hazonia, Enes Kanter, like all these guys, lottery picks that their previous teams have just discarded because they've moved on from them. And it's put them in an interesting spot where it's like, okay, you got to now prove to us and the other teams that can you still make it, and are you going to let us choose you because of your play on the court.
And we've seen some of these guys really work out well.
Like Trey Burke is balling out.
Trey Burke, Emmanuel Moutier, and Vonleh have been fantastic for them. Let's move to the next one. John Woodson said, I'm not big on Hachimura. He brings a lot of energy. Dambuya will go in top 10. Did I say that right, Dave?
Dambuya.
Sekou Dambuya. I always say Sekou, and then it kind of flows a little bit more. Dambuya will go in the top 10. He has tons of potential. So I'm going to go to you, Dave, because you're our international guy.
Sure.
Yeah. We already talked about Hachimura, Ricky did with the Orlando Magic. Yeah. Talk to me about Sekou. What makes him special, and why is he not in the forefront of some of our minds? We talked about it a little bit in the mock draft, but why is Dambuya not in the top 10? Because I did see him as high as top 5 in some of the preseason mocks.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is benefit of the doubt because of how well Luka is doing this season. People have been so up and down. It was like, KP goes in, great performance. Okay, that means next year we could take a shot on near up high. And then you saw what happened. Mm-hmm. And no offense to Frank, but that's he was put in a no-win situation. Obviously, he's got a lot of development room to go through still. Luka's performing really well, so they were like, next Euro up, who's it going to be? Sekou Demboya, pin it on your boards, boys and girls, lottery pick Sekou Demboya. I think a lot of the thing that people maybe didn't realize who haven't been watching a lot of Euroball is he is more of a project and more of a I'm trying to find a nice way to put it. The box score sheet won't show his efforts in relation to the game. He does a lot of the small things on the court, and that's more traditional for for the EuroLeague, because you don't see a lot of guys dominate scoring, because they do give older guys more minutes and they give them the benefit of the doubt, even if the younger players are perhaps better or have more potential. It's not really what the EuroLeague is about. So when you watch Sekou Demboya play, he has been in limited minutes in his situation currently, but he's effective. He is a long player who can probably guard 3 through 5. Fives, obviously, the bigger guys are going to be able to abuse him, but in EuroLeague right now, he's perfectly fine if they switch on to him. I think that what comes down to for him is he needs to continue working on his shot, because if he can pull some consistency together on his shooting from outside of about 7 feet, then he would become a real danger. Right now, he's effective in the low post, and he has a inconsistent shot from outside of that. So if he continues to build his shot up, I think he absolutely could work his way back into the top 10. I think it's all potential with him, because he's not a take over the game type player right now, but he could develop into that. If you wanted to, be like, oh, I think he's going to be our Jimmy Butler, our Kawhi Leonard, where you got a guy who can play defense, his body is made for it essentially, but he needs to continue developing his offensive game to balance it out. That's the type of prospect I view him as. He's a developmental prospect.
If he's going to go top 10, you know who would be a good fit for him?
Who's that?
It's going to be if the Mavericks move into the top 10 and the Hawks, because they have their pick, take him at 10. Like, that to me is Sekou in the top 10, because they're a team that has multiple picks.
And what's the projection or the protection on that Dallas pick?
The protection on it?
I think it's top 3.
Is it 3 or 5? I couldn't remember.
I would want to say it's 3, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'll look it up in a second. But like, that would be a team that they've already got their guys. They're going to get another one possibly in the top 5. They can even have them come over and develop here, or could stash them and say, hey, develop over there. You don't have to come over right away.
I got the thing. It is pick with transfer, because Mavericks pick is not currently in top 5, so it is top 5 protection.
Okay.
But with Sekou, also, just to give him a little bit more background, he's currently playing in the NLB Pro A. It's a French league. And a big thing in there is they have MVP, and that's typically goes to the more veteran players that in that league, and then the young player league, and that's where we see some of these prospects getting poached. Some guy in 2000 named Tony Parker won it. Don't know if you heard him.
He's okay.
Boris Diaw in 2001 won it. Jan Mahimi, I know some people don't see him as a great player, but he did make it in the NBA.
He was crippled by injuries.
He's still in the NBA too. 2005, Jan Mahimi won it. 2006 and 2007, Nick Batum won it. You look at Evan Fournier, 2010, 2011, he won it. Clint Capella in 2013, 2014, he won it. And then 2015, 2016, Frank Ntilikina was back-to-back Young Player of the Year award winner. So, I mean, there's a
track record. It's proven. It's just, I think the thing that they need to remember is go in with the expectation that he is not a ready-made project. You mentioned a lot of those names. Not all of them were able to translate year one to having a fulfilling day one performance.
And I think John Woodson hit it on the head. He has a ton of potential.
Yeah.
But it's a potential.
Right.
So if your team's going to draft a Sekou, he might not come in right away. And you got to look at Frank. It might be something that is not immediate hit. It might not be something that takes right away, because these guys, they do look great on film. But then again, you have to question about, who are they playing against? Are they getting starting minutes as well? Because we see Lou Williams dominate, second units, and then some people ask, well, why is he not a Hall of Famer? It's because he's not doing it up against the best of competition. And that's not even, to put down the EuroLeague. It's just like, if you saw Devin Booker putting up 40 against, the Clippers second unit, you'd be like, wow, this kid's great. And then he goes up against, the first unit, and then he kind of takes it back to 20 a night, because it's tougher to score on these defenses. So you just have to take it to grain of salt. Great body, though. Great athleticism. He's definitely got a sweet stroke as well. A very intriguing player, but I don't think we've seen enough out of him yet because of the playing time he hasn't been getting. Let's move to now the Nasir Little portion of this. Kojum, Codejm. Oh my God.
Sean dying over there.
Codejjm.
Kojum.
Nasir Little reminds me of Marquise Chris, and then Ladyboy Lover, who commented about 19 times. OMG, quit calling players 3 and D when they aren't that. Nasir Little hasn't shown he can make threes, so he's not a 3 and D prospect. So let's talk a little about that, because I did say that he's a 3 and D prospect. He is not a good three-point shooter. That is correct. I'm not saying he has a great shot, but prospect means that he's growing, means that he has that ability. And yes, he's not a great three-point shooter now. But again, you look at what he is able to do, and I don't think his shot is broken. And he has the ability to knock down some threes every now and then. He's been in a horrible streak. I can't remember. The last time he's made one was against Harvard. He was 1-2 against Harvard. But even before that, you have to go all the way back to Texas on November 22nd when he made a 3. So he's not consistently making threes. He's not shooting enough as well for me to be intrigued as a 3 and D prospect. But you see his ability defensively, and you have to try to project him to something offensively as well. You have some players like, good old Tony Allen, who is strictly just a defensive player.
Yeah.
But what else can he give you defensively? So maybe saying he's more of a slasher who can play great defense would be more fair.
In the mold of like Roberson.
Yeah, but I think if we're projecting him, I think you cannot limit him for being a possible three-point shooter. So if you're saying that he can't be a three-point shooter, that's fine. My bad on technicalities. But I'm just trying to project him in some way. And maybe 3 and D is just way too overused, just like positionless basketball is, just like the Week East is on this podcast. I would just say...
I haven't said it in quite some time.
I say it every week just to continue it.
I don't need to at this point.
I'm just trying to project him offensively, and he is very athletic, so maybe he just becomes a slasher. But then again, where would he play offensively? Would he then fit into like a 4 mold? Would he fit into like a 3 mold? Not a 4 mold because he's 6'6". I was thinking he's Cam Reddish size. Slashing 2s, those are kind of out of style. What slashing 2s are there? Is he going to live in the mid-range like a DeMar DeRozan? You have to try to see like what he will fit in NBA prospect-wise. Kid has a ton of potential. Kid is a great athlete. Kid has a great on-ball and off-ball knack to play defense. So you immediately, at least I do, immediately want to put him into a defensive role, and the first thing that comes to my mind is 3 and D player. So again, that's fine if you don't want to crown him as a 3 and D player. I just think that, again, that's what you need in the NBA, and that's what he's going to be forced into in this role is you're going to be a great defender, and you need to add that three-point shot to be a guy who can be on the floor consistently. Because slashers do not have a true game in the NBA, and he's not a guy that can be a point forward as well. So if he's going to be a 3 or a 2, you need that ability to distribute. You need that ability to be play a point. Something in some way or another for some spans of the game, and I don't see him being a facilitator at all. So I question his offensive, at least his offensive prowess and what he would be in an NBA game. The Nasir Little reminds me of Marquise Chris, though. I just thought that was funny because I do not see that at all. 6'11" and extremely athletic.
You look at, and this could be just a stat thing. I pulled up the numbers just now because I'm like, I wonder what they are. And, they're not that far off. Like, obviously, Chris's numbers are better because he started and played more minutes. Nasir is at about 19 minutes a game, whereas Chris was at 25 almost a game. He was 24.9. But if you look at Chris, he had 13 points a game, just under 1 assist, just about 5.5 boards, and he shot about 56% from the field. Where you look at Nasir Little, almost 9.9, so I'll round up 10 points a game. Same assist numbers, 0.8. Rebounds at 4.3, so he's a little bit under where Chris was. And then his field goal percentage on 2 less shots per game is 50% compared to 53. I was reading the 2-point number, but 53 from the field totally. They're not that far off. However, the thing is, they are different players. Like, Chris was 3 inches taller and was a 4. Nasir's a guy that we're going to probably project to the 3, but kind of plays the 3-4 at UNC.
Yeah, I think a lot of this just, for me, Sean, you hit it on I'm trying to project what he could be at his top end. You don't, and that's the thing with all these young kids. You don't want to limit them with
but don't throw that B word
potential.
around.
I'll say the word bust all I fucking want to, people. Go watch the video. But with him, I feel like he's somewhere in the range of like you said, if he's going to be limited offensively at a bad level, you look at a prospect like Stanley Johnson when he was coming out, and he faced similar issues in his game because he just didn't have a well-rounded game, but he was the dude can play legitimate level NBA defense. Can he develop his offensive game? We're all hoping and waiting, and we've seen hit and miss this year as he moved to a bench role, which is interesting as Nasir's currently in a bench role because Luke May's in front of him. The other guy that I'm thinking maybe it's a low end for some people to think it, and especially for someone Nasir at the top end of this draft, but like in the role of a PJ Tucker, where if he could develop that shot, he could be like a hybrid version of a PJ Tucker, maybe a little bit better, because he'll be so much younger when he hits that peak, where PJ took a lot of time to develop. I think Nasir has the game where he could develop that shot earlier and be able to contribute at the same level because physically he can defend 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I think the Stanley Johnson comparison is probably the most apt that I've seen. And again, like you look at him and what is his identity offensively? And there is none for him. And then you look at, I'm trying to find like a shot chart, and the best thing I could find it was last updated on Christmas Day. So this doesn't contain all of his games, but for Nasir Little, the best place he's shooting is obviously at the rim. He's 32 of 40, 80%. That's awesome. Like going to the rim and making 80% of your shots. Like Giannis isn't even doing that. Like that's something that is impressive. Obviously, college to NBA, that's gonna go down.
You could say Zion even.
Yeah, but even Zion. But I mean, he goes to the rim and he attacks it at an elite level. So that's something big too. But again, you're a 6'5" guard, so you need the ability to work outside of that, especially in the space and pace NBA. And the pace fine's gonna be fine for him. I think he can run the break totally fine. But then you got to look at where else is he having some success, and the only place else is long mid-range. He's 6 of 15, shooting 40%. That's not great, but hey, I'll take that. So maybe he develops into that DeMar DeRozan at his best, but again, I'm really worried about what his offensive identity is. So it was just natural to say 3-and-D. My bad, but I don't see the Marquise Chris thing because even with Marquise Chris too, like he had Markelle Fultz creating for him, and that was just a 1-2 combo. It was DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray and Marquise Chris had a great 1-2 tandem in college. And another thing too is Marquise Chris is 6'10". He's playing power forward, so his
athletic.
His athleticism against slower forwards is gonna tear him apart. And Marquise Chris was a decent shooter in college, a good long mid-range jumper. He was a fine three-point shooter too. So maybe in some ways I can see it, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch to compare a 6'6" guard to a 6'10" power forward center. But anyways, let's move to the last one, Ricky. This one's coming to you. Brandon Harris on the 11 through 20 mock said, Bull will go top 3. Thoughts?
No, he won't. And the reason why is... do you know who Greg Oden is, by the way? Because that's my fear for Ball right now, is basically any injury like me and Dave have talked about when Dave was on the PTP, back, knee, leg, like foot, any of that for a big guy like Ball, nope, don't want it. Don't want it anywhere near him. And right now, like, he is on, I know I talked about Darius Garland being like, let me show you what you can get.
Yeah.
This is to the 10th degree of like, hey, you know what? I'm probably not, because if he was healthy and this never happened, I'll be honest, he would have went 5 in my mock to the Hawks because the Hawks had 2 picks. Let's take a big guy here. We can get kind of a 3 with what everything that's going on later in the draft, like a 2-3. But I don't think he's going top 3, especially after this injury. Like top 5 as now his peak, and that's like 4 or 5.
Ooh, I don't see that at all.
That's like if he comes back and people are like, okay, he's back. Top 10 is probably where he'll actually hit, and that'll probably be the highest.
Fully healthy, I was worried about putting him in my top 5 no matter what, and that's just because of his body. And I kept bringing this up, and I know I brought this up before I even brought it up in the mock draft. This is a guy that you look at his father, and his father was rail thin. And you look at at Bol right now, he's rail thin. And now going up against bigger, faster, stronger players in the NBA, how is his body going to hold up? That's going to be a grind for 82 games. It's going to be tough to stay healthy. And when you're already having a foot injury, like you mentioned for big men, it's tough to recover that and then stay healthy because you have a problem with your foot one day, then it's the knee, then it's the back, and then you have one hard fall, and then your back's totally fucked up, and then you're out for the rest of the season because you have to get back surgery. Like, one bad fall can totally ruin your season. We saw this with Kristaps Porzingis. One fall tore his ACL, and that was a guy that we're comparing him to. And you look at Kristaps' career, Kristaps always has these nagging injuries just because big guys, it's tough for them to fully heal because their bones are so big, just people shouldn't be that big. And the fact that they're more athletic than me is fucking
Sorry, that just
insane.
sounded like Trump-esque right there.
Well, no, I didn't mean that bad way. But
People
it's like,
shouldn't be that big. Their balls are so big.
the average,
so huge.
The
you wouldn't even believe it.
The average for a normal male is 6 feet tall. So when you're 7'3",
Wait, no, the average is not 6 feet tall.
I thought it was 5'9".
God, no, it's
5'9".
it's like 5'7", 5'8".
All right, well then I'm average. Shocker. But then again,
Maybe
if
not in
it
the
is
US,
average,
but
if it is average, like if let's say the average is 5'8", then this guy's 13 inches, 14 inches taller.
5'9" is
All right,
average.
so I'm extremely average. Shocker. But again, this guy's 12 inches plus taller than the normal human being, and he's trying to do what again average players are trying to do, and I power to him. Like fuck, it was fun to watch. And his career's not over yet, but it's tough for them to then heal at a normal rate, to know that they're healed, and then go back and play this extremely physical game back again. Like I have extreme concerns about his injury, and that's why when the Celtics were there with their first of 19 picks in the first round pick, they're taking him because he has insane potential. He has insane body. That's why the Denver Nuggets last year were the team to jump on Michael Porter Jr. because they had that ability of, we're a playoff team. We're not going to get anybody that's going to help us, and we might have the ability to get a superstar. So let's just take the guy, Michael Porter Jr., that's going to, be our lottery ticket. If he works out, cool. If he doesn't, I'll throw it away. It's fine.
And where are they right now?
Number 1 in the Western Conference. So
with another lottery ticket in their pocket with Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. So this is something that you can take chances on, and Bol Bol is something that you should take a chance on because this kid is talented when he's healthy, but when healthy is such a huge asterisk in my mind for him.
I would almost caution, and I'm going to sound like Ricky here, depending on how he looks come workout time.
Bingo.
Joel Embiid style. That man is going to go and he's going to sit on a bench during games and he's going to go practice and he will grow and he will solidify himself up a little bit more. But he's just one of those guys where I look at his offensive game. He's just got a beautifully soft touch. Offensively, he can be an absolute monster, almost unmatched in what he can do for his size. And I just think, even in limited minutes, is this a guy worth taking a risk on? If he caps out at 20 minutes a night, say he's got, due to his health, his medical needs, he can't play for more than 20 minutes a night. Mm-hmm. But those 20 minutes, you're going to get 18 points efficiently.
Damn.
That's what I'm saying. I think he can be that. Okay, say 15 points in 20 minutes. I think he can be that next level scorer in the NBA, even with this. It's just the fact of, are you going to take that risk? Because at this point in time, we've seen very few of these 7-foot-plus guys succeed. Mm-hmm. And we have a small sample size. We've got Joel Embiid, we've got KP, like you said, Greg Oden.
Even KP, though, again, it's like he keeps having these nagging injuries. Joel Embiid's the only one that I could think of, and that even that has been able to.
We're resting him now. We're being cautious, and I think that's where the NBA is headed. Guys aren't going to play 82-game seasons, and if they play an 82-game season, guess what? They're not playing 35, 40 minutes a night. They're playing 32, 30. What are right now? And I know it's a funny example, but the Nets, they're not a top team league, but because they're playing so deep. I think their average minute is 27 minutes for their starters. I don't think the NBA is ever going to be that 40-plus minute a night in, night out grinding. So I think a guy like Bol Bol has the offensive potential to warrant a lottery pick.
And that's why
3 is ridiculous, though.
And that's why guys that Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem as well, that's why those guys are so phenomenal, is because they're this big. They're doing everything on the floor, and they had that longevity in their career. And even Shaq.
Absolutely.
Shaq wasn't able to bounce back late in his career because of his inability to recover from injury. And we see Kareem playing, or Will playing full games. I think it was a stat or something. He played
his average minutes per game was 48.2 or something.
Yeah,
how can you
his rookie season he missed 9 minutes. It was something you're never gonna see that again because those guys are just freak athletes, and maybe you will see it, but when it happens, it's a freak athlete. And now consistently we've just seen guys with this faster, bigger, more athletic NBA. Their body starts to break down because they can't hold up to it, and also medicine's pushing itself further and further and trying to speed up recovery time, but sometimes you just need to take it slow,
everybody in the NBA is juicing.
Yeah.
I got 2 words for you.
Yeah.
Boston Celtics. There's a reason. there's a reason I had them go with him. And, like, they are the team. If he goes in the top 10, it's because that Grizzly pick stayed at 9, went to 10, and Boston took him at 9 or 10.
That's fair.
Like, they're the team that could take that chance of, you know what? We'll stash it because we're going to be a playoff team without you.
And I don't want to burst your bubble, but I think we're all in the same agreement there. That's why we all had him going to the Boston Celtics at 12. Like, that was the first pick I think that we had going chalk outside of Zion.
Cam at 4.
Okay. So, I mean, we agreed on some of them that mock draft, and ball to the Celtics. That was the first one it took because the kid is extremely talented, but the injury concerns are way too large in my mind.
Zion at 1. We all had Cam at 4. We all had DeAndre Hunter to the T-Wolves at 9. Let's see.
Oh, can we just hurry up? Because my bladder's going to explode.
Yeah,
if it's not that important. All right, cool. All right, that was the last question, thankfully.
You really just, had to go?
Bladder's going to explode. Oh, no, it's been boiling.
He's been fighting
it's been knocking at the door. Anyways, that's going to do it for the Fast Break Podcast. I want to thank you for listening. Let us know what you think about the NBA Draft Mailbag. We went a cool 1 hour and 15 minutes on this.
Jesus Christ.
Yep. So let us know what you think. Hopefully it was good. If not, I'll be pissed. We want to thank Jake as well for coming on to the podcast, talking about the T-Wolves with us. If you do want to be like Jake, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Also, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. And also go to youtube.com/mostvaluablepodcastreel and subscribe. We're closing on 1,500. But for Dave Oster, Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time.